Yeah.
Okay, grade 6 girls, we will begin lesson number 2, Protists and Fungi. Again, this lesson we have done in grade 5. I have done in term 1 about Protists and Fungi in our revision classes and in the first week. So we just need to brush up or just need to quickly see the vocabulary terms and see the video, and that's it. We'll move to another lesson because it's already been explained. Okay, what are protists and fungi? I told you they come under domain, right? We have eukarya, in which we have animalia, plantae, protist. Remember that?
Yeah, miss.
Yeah, you have plantae, you have animalia, you have protist, and you have fungi. So you should be able to describe the characteristic of protein and protist and fungi. Now, mushrooms belong to the kingdom Plantae. Is it correct? Are mushrooms
What, miss? Mushroom belong to the kingdom plantae?
plantae? Are mushrooms plant or no, they are separated? Are mushrooms plant, girls?
No, miss.
No, very good answer. They are not plants, they come under fungi. Now, algae use sunlight to make food through photosynthesis. Girls, do algae make food through photosynthesis?
Algae use sunlight to make the food through
Algae
photosynthesis.
actually, see, algae also use sunlight to make photosynthesis. Spores are important in fixing nitrogen. Girls, spores are not important. Protists can reproduce both sexually and asexually. True, protists can produce both sexually and asexually. The photo below shows a protist you might be familiar, seaweed. Deep inside the sea, you see the seaweed, and they say write the caption for the photo that describes the protist. Seaweed is a multicellular protist that have grown to be quite large. Why is it coming like this? Just a second, girls. No idea. Anyways, what is protista? It come under eukaryotes. Eukaryotic organism that cannot be classified as fungi. You cannot call it as fungi, the protista. Okay, I told you earlier that protists, they look like animals, they look like plants, okay? They are very closely related to each other. But like eukaryotes, they have nucleus. They have hair-like structure. Do you see the paramecium here? They have hair-like structure that is called as cilia. They have membrane organelles. Even protists have membrane-bound organelles like you know that ribosomes. Examples, they have chloroplast that can make their own food. Okay, and they have vacuoles that remove excess water. They also have complex structures. I told you they have the cilia. Can you see the picture?
Miss, what is the vacuoles?
See, inside the cell, there are big holes where the water is stored. Now, in this cell, you can see this red color part. This is a vacuole.
Yeah.
This is the contractile vacuole, they showed you.
They put it inside. They put inside water.
Yeah, they store inside the cells of this protista. They store inside water. And they have this hair-like structure, which is called as cilia, that helps them to move back and forth. Other protists use flagellum. You remember the word flagella? I told you even they are like tail or whip-like structure that propels the cell forward. Amoebas are also protists that move by stretching their bodies. This forms pseudopods or false fruit. When cytoplasm flows into the pseudopod, the rest of the cell moves. Simple, you don't need to have or know much, but I will just say that they also have, we call it a euglena. This is a protist that also have a flagellum, and they have a chloroplast-like plant that make own food. It uses its flagellum to move towards light and also to escape from predators. Don't you think so? This structure just look like a plant cell. That's the reason
Yeah.
why protists are also like plants. Now coming here, protists also produced by asexual or sexual reproduction. When I talk about asexual, every organism can produce offspring on its own. These offsprings are genetically identical to the parent. When we say the word identical, that means it is asexual reproduction. When environmental conditions are favorable and there is plenty of food and water, asexual reproduction produces many offsprings very quickly. They can undergo asexual reproduction by binary fission. That means in binary fission, it copies its DNA. Remember that becomes two. I have shown you a single cell become two. First thing,
Yeah.
they copy a DNA. Second thing, they divide into two cells. And each one of them, they have their own copy of DNA. They paramecium, what we have just seen the picture before, the paramecium, this is a paramecium, they can split into two cells by binary fission. Now here, bisexual reproduction, they will drop spores, girls. They will drop small spores. Two cells, gametes join together. You remember the word last year we have, not last year, in last term, that they
Yeah, the binary
the
fission and
gametes, the egg cell
yeah.
from the mother and the sperm cell from the male, they unite and form a gamete.
Yeah.
That cell is called a gamete or a zygote. Each gamete contain a single copy of the genes for the organism, one from the male and one from the female. A cell with only one copy of genetic material is described as a haploid. If they have two genetic material, they call as diploid, but here they call haploid. A cell with two copies is diploid. When the haploid gamete join the diploid offsprings, they have a unique combination of genetic material. They increases a species' chance of survival when the environment change. In some protist generation, alternate between using sexual or asexual reproduction. The haploid generations are called, when they have single copy, they are called as gametophytes. And when they have diploid generation, they are called as sporophytes. Again, when they have haploid generations with one copy, they are called as gametophytes. And when they have diploid, they are called as sporophytes. Spores are reproductive cells that are resistant to stressful environment conditions. These spores develop in haploid adults. Haploid means two cells. Haploid means here one copy of genetic material with two cells. We have animal-like protist, we have fungus-like protist, we have plant-like protist. Algae, they are just plant-like protist. Even mushrooms, they look like plants. And we have animal-like protist, and they eat bacteria, yeast or another. Usually You call it a cilia sweep, found in the Permian food pathway. Amoeba. Even amoeba look like animal, but it is not an animal. It is a protist. Let us watch a video.
We might not spend much time thinking about the things we can't see, but did you realize that we are surrounded by tiny organisms that share our space? The microscopic organism shown here is a dinoflagellate,
So
a
I
type
can't
of
see
protist
the
that is
video.
well suited for maneuvering
It's not coming straight.
1 minute, my lady.
the world.
Now can you see?
Then, click the highlighted parts of
Yeah.
this dinoflagellate to discover more about these types of organisms. When done, click the Next button to. Some protists are able to make their own food, much like plants do, through photosynthesis. As you might imagine, these types of protists would not be able to live in the deep ocean because light levels there would be too low for photosynthesis to occur. Flagella can be found on both protists and bacteria. These hair-like flagella spin or whip back and forth, allowing the dinoflagellate to move around in the water where it lives. This cool way to move is one way in which dinoflagellates are perfectly adapted to their aquatic or water-based environment. These tiny organisms are capable of producing large red tides made up of many dinoflagellates. Some red tides harm fish, shellfish, and sea mammals, as well as humans who eat affected seafood or breathe in the toxins produced by the protists. Welcome to the lesson, Protists and Fungi, where you'll learn about the characteristics, life processes, growth, and reproduction of the organisms in the kingdoms Protista and Fungi. The vocabulary words for this lesson are Protista, gamete, algae, spore, fungi, hypha, lichen, and mycorrhiza.
Mala, can you read this out?
Oh, okay. Protista, algae, fungi, lichen, jam,
Gamete,
gamete, spore, hypha, and mycorrhiza.
Click each word to find out more. Have you ever considered where the foods you eat come from? You may be surprised to learn that some foods are made from algae, while others need fungi in order to be produced. Click the images to learn more. Algae belong to the kingdom Protista. Nori is a red alga used to make sushi.
You know sushi? It's made.
Yeah, I love sushi. Yes. Mommy, I don't like that sushi. No. Sushi. Monsieur, it's made up of what? Like the sushi.
Maybe now when you hear that it's made from algae, you will say you don't like it.
Ah. I don't like sushi.
Algae belong to the kingdom Protista. Nori is a red alga used to make sushi. Miso is a traditional Japanese seasoning produced by fermenting soybeans with salt and a fungus. The result is a thick paste that can be mixed with soup stock to make miso soup. You can dip your sushi and other foods in soy sauce. Soy sauce is also made by fermenting soybeans with a fungus.
Girls, we are not, we must not say, that your mother is making a pizza with the yeast, and yeast is a fungi. So it's okay if
Okay, Miss Fungi, it's like...
Yes?
I think it's not good to eat fungi, right? Or it's okay?
See, again, like bacteria are harmful and useful. We have fungi which have its own use, and, like mushrooms are not bad to eat. Okay, they have their own uses, right?
Yeah.
Likewise.
Protista is a diverse kingdom of organisms that don't fit into any other kingdom. They may be single-cell or multicellular. Some are photosynthetic and some are not. The one characteristic all protists share is that they are all eukaryotic. Click the images to learn more about protists. Most protists are single-cell. All protist cells have membrane-bound organelles, such as a nucleus and mitochondria. Some protist cells have chloroplasts.
I have shown you, like paramecium, how it has chloroplast inside and how it has vacuole inside, right?
Some protists, like this paramecium,
They
have
have
cilia
seeds.
fine, hair-like projections from the cell. Some protists, like this paramecium, have cilia fine, hair-like projections from the cell. Some protists have flagella. A flagellum is a tail-like projection that helps some protists, like this euglena, move around. Other protists move by extending part of their body and then flowing into this extended part, called a pseudopod. Some protists reproduce sexually. The major advantage of sexual reproduction is genetic diversity. Genetic diversity increases the chance that organisms will develop traits that ensure their survival. Most protists can also reproduce asexually. Protists can be grouped into plant-like, animal-like, or fungus-like protists, according to the way they get their nutrients. Plant-like protists make their own food. Algae are eukaryotic organisms that convert the sun's energy into food through photosynthesis. Algae don't have roots, stems, or leaves, but algae are plant-like because they have chloroplasts like plants do. Reproduction in the kingdom Protista. During binary fission, the body of an individual protist divides into two parts, producing a pair of offspring. These two organisms are identical. Some protists, such as brown algae, have both asexual and sexual stages in their life cycles. Sexual reproduction involves two parents. Offspring have characteristics of both parents, but they aren't identical to either one. Each parent contributes a gamete, which is a cell with only one copy of each chromosome. During reproduction, a male gamete and a female gamete combine. The offspring cell has two copies of each chromosome. In the case of brown algae, these offspring will grow into what we call diploid algae.
Did you understand this, girls? They are saying that both asexual and sexual reproduction in one thing. Yani at a time, both are going on. In the starting, asexual start, but later on, with the spores, they produce two different, the two organisms, the male and the female gametes are involved, which goes fertilization and produces zygote, and same way, multicellular diploid.
Some protists, such as brown algae, have both asexual and sexual stages in their life cycles. When these diploid algae mature, some algae cells will undergo meiosis and produce spores. Each spore grows into an offspring with cells that have one copy of each chromosome. This offspring is called haploid. The haploid organism will mature and produce gametes, continuing the cycle of alternating generations.
So at one time it will go sexual reproduction, and at the other time it will go asexual reproduction. That's why they're saying alternating generation, okay? So at the time of sexual reproduction, it is diploid. At the time of asexual reproduction, it is haploid.
Protists can be classified according to how they get their nutrients. Drag each label to the protist it describes. You can roll over the images to find out more about them.
Which was plant-like here? Which was plant-like? That will be the producer. Let me put the algae. It makes own food. Yes. This can be consumed.
And consumer, yes. No, it's the first one.
This is the decomposed.
Good job. Plant-like protists make their own food, while animal-like protists capture their food. Fungus-like protists absorb nutrients from their surroundings and can serve as decomposers, breaking down dead organisms.
We'll continue tomorrow the same lesson, okay? Take care, girls. Have a nice day.
Have a nice day.
Friends, this is Malak and Davati, both of you.
Yeah.
Have a nice day, girls.